Hi, Thomas. Can you hear me?
Hello.
Great, I can see you. And whenever you're ready to start staring your screen, I will begin in a prayer and introductions whenever you're ready.
All right. Let me get it loaded up here.
All right, great. All right, good evening, everyone. We're going to begin in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Amen. Lord Jesus, we thank you for this time. We thank you for this ministry. We thank you for all those volunteers who are present, all of those who are in our audience. We thank you for um, Thomas, who's going to be giving us this presentation. We ask that you be with him to guide him so that we might learn how we may better serve you in our lives. We ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen.
In the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Well, good evening, everyone who's tuning in right now, and welcome to Compass Catholic's monthly webinar series. We're thrilled to have each and every one of you join us today as we dive into the journey of faith and finances. My name is Camilla, and I am honored to be your host through today's session. For those of you who might be joining us for the first time, Compass Catholic Ministries is a nonprofit organization that is dedicated to helping families and individuals align their financial lives with their faith. We believe that managing money wisely is not just about the numbers, but also about stewardship and living a life that reflects the values of our faith. And we know that there's no purpose to a journey without a destination, so by using a compass, we can stay on the right path and arrive to our desired destination, which is where our name comes from. So, the Catholic approach to handling money and possessions as a faithful steward is in light of our Catholic faith. And today we're going to be hearing a little bit about that from Mr. Payne. So, I encourage you to all participate actively. Feel free to use the question and answer session. At the bottom of your screen, there's a button there that you can enter in your questions. We will have a time for question and answers at the end of our webinar. So feel free to put anything in the chat as we go along, and at the end, we'll try to answer as many questions as possible. So feel free to start joining in now as we begin. Before we start, I'd like to just have the pleasure of introducing Thomas. He's our seasoned financial advisor who helps his clients get in their financial house, if you will, to get in order and to make plans for the future. So in this webinar, we'll be discussing how to integrate one's faith and finances, which is exactly in line with our mission. So I'll let you introduce yourself as well and go a little bit more into depth with our presentation. But on behalf of Compass Catholic Ministries, thank you so much for being here, Tom, and you have the floor.
All right. Thanks very much. Well, I think I met John Bean, who was the founder of Compass, probably, I don't know, 10 years ago. We met at a couple of conferences and talked about things, and just very impressed with the work that they do. I'm familiar with Dave Ramsey, and I've done the Dave Ramsey program, but using the Compass Catholic documents and brochures and books and some of their processes at the parish have really been enlightening, and they have just that Catholic perspective on things is certainly refreshing and very powerful to help, like you say, individuals and families. So I'm glad to be here tonight and on board with Compass Catholic, and I know you're doing great work and even some recent changes with the ministry, and I know God is blessing you and will continue to do so.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, we look forward to your presentation. Thank you for being here.
Yeah. Um, so the first, of course, you got to have some disclosures and compliance. So if you want to read through that, but pretty much the advice I'm giving tonight, or what we're talking about tonight, is not advice. I'm not trying to sell you anything. You can look me up on the government website if you want to. Providing guidance is just for information purposes only. So if everyone has read that, get that out of the way and move on to the next thing. So the outline for tonight, a bit of an agenda, a little about me. I'll share a little bit of that. Talk about the perfect financial plan. through life, sometimes there are some things that get in the way, these roadblocks and speed bumps. So we'll hit on a few of those and how to maybe address them. Um, this plan of life that we'll talk about in some detail before we get into financial planning, and then questions and answers. So like Camila said, use the chat box at the bottom of your screen and type them in, and we'll keep those and be able to tackle those at the end of the program. So that's for our questions. So this is my family here. God's blessed us with 6 girls and 3 boys. The oldest, second oldest daughter, Sophia, is pregnant. She wasn't here at our daughter's first communion a couple months ago. But we were married in 1999, so we celebrated our 25 years of marital bliss this last month, and it's been lots of ups, lots of downs, lots of things going on in life, as one might imagine, and probably have experienced yourself. But been certainly exciting, and we're feel very fortunate with what we've got. Our oldest son, Charlie, 2 weeks ago, headed off to the United States Army, and he's 2 weeks into Fort Leonard Wood up in Missouri as a private, and we got to talk to him. They give him a few minutes on Sunday, so we got to hear his voice yesterday and telling us about the ordeals, and he was smiling and happy, and the food wasn't bad, and so he'll be in for 4 years, and he's just kind of excited to do that. So my firm, Prosperitas Wealth Management, I started almost 25 years ago. There's been ups and downs in the markets. We've seen that, and we help our clients sort of weather the storms and benefit from the good days and the bad days. We're a fiduciary, so we put our clients first. We don't sell products. We just provide advice and manage assets for people. But focus on helping people get organized. A lot of people really don't know where they stand, and looking at all their assets and their liabilities, and got insurance over here and accounts over here. So helping them get organized is important, and educating them with current trends and new tax laws, and helping to implement the recommendations that we would give, and then looking back at the results and say, wow, based on some of these changes we made, and we reduced some risk, and we grew some assets, and we're able to retire when we want to get the kids in college. So working at those, looking back at the results is important. So I guess I'm not the graphic artist, but this is the perfect financial plan here, that we sort of start out here when we're getting ready to go with starting our life. We start accumulating assets and growing and adding to them, and letting stock market or real estate market continue to make them grow. And then we get to that point where we sort of have that number, and all right, I think we have enough to survive. And then we start working on those assets and depleting them and spending them down. And the perfect financial plan is you spend your last dollar on your last day, and you bounce your first check to the undertaker. And so we've had that perfect plan of we started, we grew, we spend it all, and we're dead the day that the last dollar's gone. But the problem is we don't know when that day is. Is it tomorrow? Is it next week? Is it at life expectancy? Is it 5 or 10 years before or after that? So there really is no perfect financial plan, unless, of course, God only knows and you get some sort of insight. But do we want to spend the last dollar the last day, or do we want to leave a legacy? Do we want to leave some money to our children or grandchildren, or to some charity? So death is the big unknown, but something we'll talk about some more, some ways to look at that. So I was recently at the Young Catholic Professionals Conference, and conveniently so here in Dallas. I'm in Fort Worth, so not too far away. And at the national conference this year, it was inspired by some of the writings of Saint Jose Maria Escrivá, and quite an interesting person. He lived most of the 20th century. He was in Spain, ordained, then he was beatified and canonized by Pope St. John Paul II. And I'm guessing you probably know that he was the founder of Opus Dei. But there's some very insightful writings that he has put together, and one of those is this plan of life that we'll sort of go through. But the whole idea of Opus Dei is, Latin for the work of God. And when I'm a kid of the 60s and 70s, and the phrase back then was bloom where you're planted. So I don't care if you're the priest or the pope or the ditch digger or a homemaker or a brain surgeon, whatever you do, wherever you are, do that for the glory of God. And there's beauty and purpose and good things from doing from wherever you are. So if you look at that plan of life, he sort of goes through these, I think there's 8 or so. Jump out of bed in the morning. Good morning, God. I'm here. I'm alive. Thank you very much. With a morning offering throughout the day, thinking of mental prayer, whether it's extemporaneous or rote prayer, but our Lord prayed. He certainly encouraged others to do so. We think of the holy mass, and it's our duty or obligation to go, but to think of, instead of doing what's the minimum and what's the maximum we could do. Is it weekly prayer, or can you get to mass every day or a couple more days a week? So that certainly is a great demand of us. He talks about spiritual reading, and besides reading the Bible and the Gospels, looking at other good spiritual books to dive into the lives of the saints. And there's so much out there to read, and maybe turning off the TV or not playing the video games for a while and putting our nose in a book for a while to improve ourselves. Visiting a local church, whether it's open or they have adoration, but being present in the Blessed Sacrament, just the recognition when you're driving by a church and you see a steeple, not that there's all that many steeples anymore, but blessing yourself, just putting yourself in the presence of God, having a devotion to Mary, certainly a daily rosary is a great way to be familiar with her and through the mysteries of the rosary, her life and the life of our Lord. Take 20 minutes out of a day, do that. And then, at the end of the day, examination of conscience. We get to know ourselves better, and sort of that reflection of how was our day? What could we have done better? What did we do that was a positive? Receiving the sacrament of confession weekly, monthly, but frequently as possible, because that really keeps us in the state of grace. And then throughout the day, looking at being in the presence of God, just realizing just who we are. We have an association with the creator of the universe that he invites us to call Daddy and Father. And that, just to meditate on that, is so amazing. And again, the work, whatever it is that you do, wherever you are, offering that up to God's glory. And a smile, cheerfulness, being happy. All these things are, just little things throughout the day that can really help us. But it's a way to make a plan and sort of stick to it. We're talking about financial planning and a plan for life. I was trying to, put these two things together. But we have a plan for our life and we have a plan for our finances. How do we then integrate those? And sometimes we fall, and sometimes we have some obstacles in the way. We get those little speed bumps that are in the road. Although some days we get up and think, oh, well, maybe it's a little bit more daunting than just having a little bump in the road, or we have the big obstacle we need to get around. But if we look at risk that pervades our life, whether it's financial risk or insurance risk or the risk of saying hello to someone that maybe needs a word or two of comfort, but just trying to manage those. But if we look at our finances, the idea of insurance, it's one of those roadblocks in life that you can address the risk. And looking at it, there's different types of insurance. And the whole idea of insurance is that you take the risk that's on you 100%, and how do you then pass that off to another entity, an insurance company? So you pay them a premium every so often, then they take on the risk. So God forbid your house burns down. If you have insurance, they'll pay for some or all of it to be replaced. If your car gets in an accident, you don't have insurance, it's all coming out of your pocket. So these, we'll talk about a couple of these, but another one that I always bring up with people, this idea of umbrella liability insurance that a lot of people don't know about, that if you've got, say, $100,000 of coverage on your car and you're in an accident and the damage, or you're being sued for 200,000, that limit of liability of that 100,000 on your car policy, and there's another $100,000 that they're suing you for, that's got to come out of your pocket. So this idea of umbrella liability, you know, they call it umbrella because wherever you go, you sort of carry it around. So wherever you are, wherever your stuff is, you've got some neighbor kids playing on your sidewalk out front and they fall and hurt themselves, and you know, they could sue you technically. So I would invite those who are listening to call your home or auto insurance company and say, hey, give me a quote for $1 million of umbrella liability policy. And it's amazing, get, you know, depending on the situation, but maybe a couple $100 a year for $1 million of coverage. I had a sister that was on the freeway years ago. She wasn't, you know, the kids were crying in the back seat and she didn't see the car in front of her had stopped. So she plowed into him and then he plowed into another person. So these two people sued her, and thankfully she had listened to her financial planning brother and had $1 million of coverage that covered that liability portion that was up above her auto limit. So go get a quote. Doesn't cost anything to get a quote. If they say it's a couple $100 a year for $1 million of insurance, I would say that's money well spent. So if we look at life insurance, some of the uses there, you know, protection, that if you're gone tomorrow or next week or next month or in a couple of years, that income that you were making, your family then wouldn't have. So it would be something to replace that. The younger you are, the more risky it is. That if you're near the end of your work time, you've got more assets accumulated. If you're younger, you probably don't. And so that missed income would certainly be a large challenge to the survivors in your family. You know, if you were gone, would you pay off the mortgage if you had that, or credit card debt? Would you fund goals or be able to fund them if your income wasn't there? Would the kids still be able to go to college? And some insurance you has, excuse me, cash accumulation, so you can put some money in the policy, it grows, you can take the money out via a loan tax-free and use that later in retirement. Some people use life insurance for a legacy. So like we said, we're gonna bounce that first check to our undertaker. But you know, maybe we want to leave $100,000 to each of the kids or some of the grandkids. You could set up a policy so that upon your passing, or you and your spouse's passing, money would then go immediately tax-free to the next generation in as the beneficiaries. So there's ways to structure that. And also charities, you know, I want to leave money to my alma mater or to the diocese for their capital campaign, or local parish, or, you know, various charities. So life insurance, you know, there's term insurance that just sort of covers the need for a couple of years. There's permanent insurance that has more cost to it, but lasts longer. So there's a lot of different ways to look at that. Then disability insurance, if you're unable to perform your job, you haven't died, but you're still alive, just can't work, that income would that be replaced for a short term. Some states like California have a short-term disability. I'm in Texas, they don't have that. Long-term disability insurance, you might have that through an employer or through some group coverage, or you could have your own plan that you could purchase. And there's some benefits for that. But primarily it replaces your income. So if you can't work, you can't do your job. And some policies that are written so it's your own occupation, that, you know, I'm an architect. I could still flip burgers if I'm disabled, but I can't be an architect. So it would continue to pay that that monthly amount to you. But if you think of you know, a person that's say 35 and you're gonna retire at 65, so you've got 30 years of work and you make $100,000 a year, that's $3 million of lost income potential. So again, you can have policies that will offset some of this. And if you pay the premium yourself, then the money that comes in is tax-free. So there's some benefits there. If you have a group policy through work, they're probably writing it off so that any income you would receive would be taxable to you. The other one I want to talk about was long-term care insurance. If sometimes at the end of our lives, we're unable to take care of ourselves completely and need some help, whether someone coming into our home or having to go somewhere and live somewhere that they've got some care. That might be some of the physical things we can't do, or if there's dementia setting in or Alzheimer's, there's insurance that could cover those expenses that, as you might know, that it's getting more and more expensive to be able to live in a facility that has great care. It's quite costly. So it's something for yourself to consider. There's discounts if you apply with a spouse. And some people I see more and more paying the premiums and getting coverage for our parents and our grandparents that while they're still young enough and able to be insured, they're still insurable. Having the kids pull together some money to pay the premiums, because if they didn't have the coverage and then mom or dad or grandma and grandpa need some care, it's very expensive. And so paying for it versus paying for it now instead of later. And there's really three different types of coverage. The traditional was that you buy a policy, and if you needed the care for long-term care, then it would pay. But if you didn't, you died of an accident or a heart attack or something, you never used the coverage, then that insurance never paid back. Nowadays, it's more common to see policies that are tied to either assets or annuities that you can take a lump sum of money or pay into a life insurance policy that has a long-term care rider. And if you need the long-term care, it's there. If you die without needing it, there's a death benefit of life insurance. And if you change your mind at some point, there's some cash value to it. So those policies have gotten much more favorable because you're either going to want the money back or need the care or die without needing it. And it's sort of that Swiss Army knife of how to build a policy. So as I switch into the mode of financial planning, I look at this day quite a few years ago where I was sitting at a breakfast, Catholic, what do we call it, Catholic business breakfast in California when I was living then, and Bishop Alan Vigneron, who was the Bishop of Oakland Diocese, who's now in Detroit, Michigan. But he was talking, he threw out this one word halfway down the page that just stuck with me and was this paradigm shift in my life of compartmentalization, that we have all these different boxes and God's in one box, and we do God on Sunday, then we put him back in the box, then we go to this movie on Monday, then we do this other thing on Tuesday. And that idea of putting things of our life, our finances, our children, all these things in different areas instead of putting Christ at the center. I should have had a better graphic here of Christ at the center of the spokes, and all the spokes of our lives emanate out from that. But it was that moment for me that really changed things and how I was thinking of it. And I changed a lot in my business, began doing more Catholic values investing and integrating investments with finances and our faith. And so that was just a sort of a moment that really stood out. And I've always kept that book with me and kept that page open. But there's options for financial planning. You can do it all in your mind. So, I got it all up here, which works, but isn't as good. You can write it down on a pad of paper. You can get out those spreadsheets and say, all right, well, I'm making this now, and I'll make this, and with a little growth and a little so on. You can do that. There are a number of online tools, or not a number, but there are some that you can pay for. I haven't found one that's as good as the one I'm going to show you. I'm going to give you a little demo of one and offer you the use of it. But there are some tools that you can look at online, or working with a financial advisor, then using some of the tools that she or he would have. So the process of financial planning, number one, is getting all this stuff, empty out the file cabinet, the banker's box, and get organized. Start thinking about your goals, whether they're short-term, mid-term, long-term. I want to retire, I want to buy a house, get the kids in college, buy another car, and then identifying how much, what's it going to cost and when we're going to have to do it. Pulling all those things together, all the documents, your group benefits, your insurance statements. Then you put together the plan. And then the plan is no good unless you implement it. So it's taking all those to-dos, all those recommendations and actually doing it. And then over the years, over the months, monitoring it, then you make adjustments when needed. When I started doing this almost 25 years ago, you did financial planning with this big leather-bound book. So you met with a client and you got 200 pages of stuff and you had this beautiful coffee table worthy document to put everything in. You laid it down on the coffee table, and by the time the ink had dried, everything was obsolete. So now financial planning is much more on the fly, where you do it on a website. You can say, hey, you know what, maybe if I get a raise this year, what would I do to our future retirement plans? What if we move from here to here? What if the tax laws change? What if the estate tax law changes? So financial planning now is much more resilient and easy to make changes to, instead of that printed bound document. Then the areas that are covered with financial planning are looking at your money coming in, money going out, risk management, insurance, whether that's investments or insurance that you've got. The accumulation. So if we're, say, putting money into a 403B or 457 or a 401k, how do we accumulate that? What investments are we choosing? How are taxes applying to different things? And then, some people still want to retire. And, if I want to retire at age 60, am I on track to doing that? And education for oneself or for kids to get them into public school, private school, high school, college. How does all that work? Estate planning. So are things have the correct beneficiary? Do the documents, are they in place, whether it's a will, a trust, healthcare directive, power of attorney? Do you have all those in place, and are they up to date and reflecting the choices that you want to have carried out? And then charitable giving. How can I take my assets that I'm trying to be a good steward of and then be able to give some of that? There's something called a donor advised fund, where instead of putting money in a charity every year, you could take a few years of that, sort of bulk them, put them together, and then say, all right, I want to, instead of giving $10,000 a year each year for the next 10 years, and now that the way the tax law is written, you don't get much of a charitable deduction. But if I said, I'm going to take 50,000 this year and put it into one of these donor advised funds, then I could probably get a tax deduction that I could put on my itemize on my Schedule A. And so I won't give the next 4 years. I'll just put it all in this 1 year. So you get a tax benefit, and then you can give the money out of there whenever you want to. So those are the main areas of financial planning. So I'm going to shift gears here and do a little demo on that tool that I was telling you about. Let me see if I've got it up and running here. So this is money I call my wealth management system. It's powered by eMoney. They were an independent company for many years. Fidelity bought them out 5 years, a little bit more ago. But it's a place where you've got your own personal financial website. So anything that you can imagine with your finances, all your investments, your insurance, your cash flow, your estate planning, your goals, all that can be encompassed in this. And I'm offering those who are listening, those who would like to partake in this, the free use of it. And I'll show you how you can do that at the end of the call. But you can load it up, put all your stuff in there. The more time you spend to put all your belongings in here, all of your not your documents, but all of your information, the more you can then forecast, all right, what does that look like in the future for retiring, and how much is college going to be? So I'll walk you through a little bit of it and just give you a quick demo, but this front page is just a summary of the different accounts that you can put in here. So you can, type everything in manually. The power of this is, I'll show you, you can, if you've got a username and a password for an account, your 401k plan or your savings account or your checking account, you can pull that in, and then daily the data flows into this, and you can see it. So it's always up to date. You put your goals in there. We'll look at that. It has a really good budget spending tool. Looks at insurance. Some people talk about security. Click on this real quick, but it's highly encrypted. They've never been hacked. They have firewalls, and they have all these hackers trying to break in. No one's ever been able to. It's got bank level security. So, it's at the worst, if someone could get in with your username and password, they could see your stuff, but they could never move money to an offshore account, anything like that. So along the top here, there's some tabs. The first one is the organizer. That's where you put all your information. So you can put your information, the kids, what property you've got, so you can add more to it. Put their names and birth dates and so on. Then all the accounts are those items, whether they're insurance policies or different accounts, and you can link your checking, your savings. So there's, I think, 13,000 different institutions, credit unions and banks and credit cards that it'll pull the data in a way that can be viewed very cleanly. And then some accounts you may have to put in manually, but I'll make it a little bigger if that's easier to see. So if you wanted to add an account, so you can add an account. I do have an online login for this account. And then you can just type it in, like the Notre Dame Credit Union. Then you just put in your username and password, and it'll pull in the balances. If you've got 4 accounts there, it'll pull them all in. You can name them what you want. So you could have the savings, the vacation fund, whatever it might be. And so then you log in tomorrow, and it's always going to have the correct information and balances in there. If you're pulling in investment accounts, transactions, you just put money into your 401k out of this week's paycheck. All those transactions, all the new holdings, all of them are in there. Excuse me. You can list your professional contacts. So you got your attorney or CPA, you can put their name. So the idea is that all your things are in one place, so you can log in and see everything that you need to with your finances. You can then put in your income and your expenses, how much you're putting in towards savings. So we've got Martha's pension. George has a salary now, and then Martha's going to work part-time. So you can put in various things. It's a salary bonus for what is it, who's it for. It's going to start and stop at a certain time. And so this is cash flow based. So you're going to see, I'll show you a chart what it looks like. You can put your expenses in. You can add extra expenses. You got a wedding coming up. George is making a contribution to his 401k plan. Future expenses, like I mentioned, if you've got a wedding or buying a car down the road, you can put those in for future dates, and that will come into account. You can list your priorities and risk tolerance. But once you've put your goals in here, whether that's maybe retirement, I'll come back up to this chart. So we've got retirement. We're going to put each of the kids in college. Jude's heading off to Steubenville. And so you can put the year he's going to start at age 18 for 4 years. You can look up what college it's going to be. So it's got a great database of expenses here. So it pulls in all the information. We got retirement here. We could have the wedding fund. We can put in whatever goals you want. And then they show up here on the timeline, all the college for the kids, retirement for George and Martha. And then this line here is sort of a high, low, and mid, that if the stock market's returning on average about 50% of historical amounts, then we've got, we're heading up here, so we've got a good opportunity to meet our goals. As you can see here, we're 97, 99% probability of success. So we're going to end our lives with a whole lot of money. So that means, all right, well, we could probably spend some more money now, or maybe increase vacation or work a little bit less. But looking at the goals, then you can play around with it and throw in some what ifs with the Explorer mode, that you can try different things. That, all right, well, what if we can go to Stanford instead of the community college? Is that financially doable? What if we work till 60 instead of 65? But you can play around with that with Explorer mode. Going through just a few more of these tabs, it has a good budgeting tool. It'll pull in all your expenses. So if you use credit cards for miles or debit cards, all those transactions will come in and give you all your transactions. You can look at a transaction, you can recategorize it, so you can really get it working the way you want to. Some people really like the budget tool that I'll pull up here, that work. So you can set up budgets. It'll do an auto budget for all of your different categories. It's not working here. It worked a few minutes ago. Maybe we come back to it. The investment tab pulls in all the investment transactions. You can see. So if you've got accounts at Merrill Lynch and Wells Fargo and your 401k, wherever it is, you can see everything in one place, look at one big happy asset allocation and say, all right, well, everything together, I'm kind of overweighted in large companies. I probably need some more international here. I can look at all my investments, or just my 401k plan, or just the retirement accounts. You can look at it different ways. I'm going to try this spending one more time, see if it pulls up. But with the budget, you can see how much we're spending per category, and you can set up a budget to show you if you're on track or behind during the month. I don't think it's going to cooperate. Sorry about that. So the vault is a secure place where you can upload documents. So you can use the My Private Documents folder, put in all the subfolders you want. So if you got your estate planning documents, I tell clients when they travel overseas, unload your wallet, get a copy of your passport and your driver license, scan those, put them in here, so you could then access them on your phone. And if you lost it or something, you could still have access to it. So I tell people, take a picture of every wall in your house. That way, if God forbid the house burns down, you can say, all right, well, we got clothes over here, we had the statue over here, we had this over here, and documenting your belongings for such a claim could be powerful. So the most exciting tab of all these is the reports, where you can go. I think there's 120 different reports you can look at. So if you want to see all your assets, whether the investment assets, the retirement assets, what are they this year? What are they going to look like at retirement, and so on. Asset allocation that we looked at before. There's a couple different ways to look at that, but it'll show all of your accounts on the left side, and then all the different asset classes up here, and how much of whatever asset class is in different accounts. So lots of data, lots of information. The cash flows pretty powerful. So you can look at the green is the money coming in, the red is the money going out. over the life expectancy of the client. And what's the balance of your investable assets here? So we're spending now, we got some drops coming in for the college kids, and then we stop working and we're living off our, we can sort of go through all the different years. We have a negative cash flow for some of these years, and then we're going to start pulling money out of the mound to live on in later years. Just the last couple here, like this 5-year cash flow. I like this where it shows, each year money's coming in, money's going out. We got college for Mary and Michael, overlap for a couple years. We look at the next 5 years. College is going to kill us with Cecilia and Daniel, Jude, Michael, all of them in and out of college. But then you can say, oh, it looks like we're going to have a shortfall here, so we need to plan for that, or we got a little extra so we can save that for the future. There's a summary of the insurance. This net worth statement, one place you push a button and you can see all your assets on the left, all your liabilities on the right, who owns it, whether it's his or hers or something that's joint. And so we've got a net worth of 900,000. We take our assets, subtract our liabilities, and we can see if we put it all on the street and sold it all, we could get 900,000 for it. And then the last report that sort of is that 1-page snapshot of everything. It shows the summary of the probability of success, the total assets that we'll have at the end of our life expectancy, summary of our goals and expenses, assets, the net worth over here, income, savings, insurance. So this 1 page. So I have people that every month they'll print this up and save it so they can then say, all right, well, here's where we were this month. You can look back and see what it was doing. But the whole idea of financial planning is to, we get our house in order. We've got our financial house that sometimes, and I've certainly been there, it's a little dilapidated, a little run down. We're a little unsure of what we're doing, but with some work, some prayer, some planning, some organization, we can certainly turn things around. I throw out this, if anyone wants to take use of it, I call it our second opinion service. That, if anybody wants to spend a little time talking about your finances, give you a free hour of my time, look at everything, help you get going with the website if you wanted to do that, look at your values, your goals, see if you're on track to achieve those goals. I'm doing an assessment of what you've got and then give you some advice, and promise I won't try and sell you anything. Hey, I got this hot annuity you should be buying, nothing like that. And we'll have some fun along the way. I know you'll learn something. So we call that our second opinion service. Sometimes people are doing it themselves, or they've got another advisor. They're not quite sure of what they're doing. So if you wanted to bounce some ideas off another Catholic financial advisor, be happy to help. So as we get toward the end, our conclusion, Benjamin Franklin had some smart words that I think those were good, but I would just say, start today. Today is the first day of the rest of your life. So draw that line in the sand and say, I've done some bad things or things didn't go right. Starting today is the best chance you've got to get back on track. Understanding what your goals are, get organized, and then find out what works best for you. Is it doing it yourself? Is a spreadsheet the best way, or using a free online tool? And then asking for help if you need it. So if there's any questions, we'll go through those now. I see a couple in the chat. That's my information. You can scan the QR code. I set up a special page on my website that has a link to the plan of life, the slides for this presentation, and I think there was one other thing in there, but you can go check out the website through the QR code or go to that link there.
Thank you so much. And yes, I'll go ahead and read off the First question for you. It says, what makes more sense to buy a pure LTC insurance or an annuity with LTC rider? And what is the optimum age to take care of LTC?
So LTC is long-term care. And so insurance is a way to offset some of those expenses that could be $150 a day, and that's growing more to $200 a day. So it's pretty expensive as 5, 10, 20 years from now. So the optimal age to buy it is the day before you can't qualify for it. And it's another one of those that don't know when that will be. So a lot of times in someone's 50 to 60 years old is when they'll start looking at that. And again, I touched on it briefly a little bit, but the traditional long-term care insurance is use it or lose it. So you buy the policy. If you need the care, then it provide the benefit to you, would pay you back. Some of them are reimbursement. So if you spend $120 a day, then they'll reimburse you $120 a day. Some of them are called indemnity policies that, if you only have $50 a day of expenses that you made, but your policy covers $200 a day, they're going to give you the $200. They'll give you the full amount. You can do what you want with it. You don't have to reimburse your expenses. So the traditional policy is, again, if you die of an accident or a heart attack or cancer and you don't need that long-term care, then a lot of that expense might not be utilized. Then if you use the asset base, so I think of, all right, here's my amount of my money. I've got some investments for long-term and I've got $200,000 in a CD. What if I took $100,000 out of that CD now and paid a lump sum for a long-term care policy? Now you sort of just reposition some of those assets that weren't growing too much anyway. You put them into a contract that's got some benefits for now. So if you need the money back, you can get the cash out. If you died before you needed care, then that $100,000 might buy $200,000 of life insurance. And so you've got a death benefit to give to your beneficiaries. And if you needed long-term care, then maybe there's 2, 3, 4 years, or maybe an unlimited amount of care that it would provide and reimburse you for. So I think the traditional policies were much more common. These hybrid policies that are tied to an asset or an annuity. There's some other cool things with the new tax laws that grandma's got this old annuity that is a taxable annuity. If she cashed it in, she'd pay a lot of taxes on it, some capital gains taxes. She can take that, roll it over into a long-term care policy, and then any care that would come out of it, any of the benefits would all be tax-free. So you take this taxable annuity, and now you're getting potential tax-free check every month to help her pay for her care.
Well, thank you so much for answering that. We have another question. If you already receive SS and an annuity that covers all your expenses, including discretionary expenses such as vacations, would you be more aggressive with your 401k investment, considering that your annuity could do the job of bonds?
Well, if you've got an annuity that's paying for all your expenses, then that's a good, positive, wonderful thing to have. And if so, not knowing, this is, I listen to Dave Ramsey and he always gets the question, like, I don't know all this situation, but knowing what I know, if you've got everything covered and that 401k money, it's gravy or extra, or it could be for something else, then you could be more aggressive with it. If you're living close on the border with your expenses and your income, you want to be a little bit more risk averse. If you've got things covered with the annuity, and the idea is then to grow that for another reason. So you've got maybe some more assets down the road, or maybe you're going to gift it away or need it for something else. But that'd be something to look at more. But if you had everything covered, you could certainly be more, some annuities have some guarantees in it, so you can invest the annuity much more aggressively, knowing that you're getting at least a minimum amount of growth per year. That's a similar situation. So yeah, go for it.
Great. Thank you so much for that advice. And I want to take this time to say if anyone else has any last minute questions, please take advantage of the chat feature at the bottom of your screen there. But I just wanted to say thank you so much for sharing those resources and walking us through that website so we could see, another great platform to input of all of our information. Just as a reminder, I want to let everyone know one of the questions was kind enough to ask. We do want to just let everyone know that we do record all of our webinars and we post them on our YouTube channel. So this webinar, if you were unable to watch the whole thing, or if you want to go back and rewatch it, it will be available. We record all of our webinars. So I wanted to take this time again to thank you, Thomas, for being with us today and exploring how we can further align our financial practices with our faith. I love the beginning of your webinar where you just talked about, the importance of, getting those traditional values of our faith in, with all those devotions and making sure that your head is on straight with what it matters most. So we really appreciate that. Please, everyone else, tune in to our monthly webinars. Our next month will be at the end of the month as usual. And if you want to go back to our YouTube channel, you can find all of our previous webinars that started last January. So until next time, may your faithful steward mission be completed? Will you find faith that will be aligned with your finances? And I hope that we'll be able to tune in with everyone next month. So thank you once again, Thomas.
You're very welcome. Glad I could be here.
All right, everyone, have a great night and we'll see you next time. God bless everyone.
God bless you.
All right, bye-bye.